All right, good evening. Welcome. A lot of nice smiling faces out there tonight. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Kevin Freeman. I'm with WFMS Radio. Been a part of the Jim, Deb, and Kevin show for 28 years now. So I've been on the radio for quite a while. And my claim to fame is that I sound a lot taller on the radio than I really am. Appreciate you allowing me to be here tonight and help be the moderator of this event. To get things started off, we'd like to invite Elizabeth Paxton, Interim President and CEO of Tangram Business Resources, to come up.
Thank you, Kevin. I want to start by thanking everyone for being here tonight. We're very excited to see everybody here, and I want to thank the Mayor's Advisory Council on Disabilities for the opportunity to collaborate on this event. Tangram has been part of Central Indiana for the past 30 years, serving both individuals with disabilities and the companies who hire them. During this time, we have seen incredible strides made in access and inclusion for people living with disabilities, something that we celebrate tonight. In addition, in celebrating these individuals and businesses whose commitment to inclusion has elevated Indianapolis, I challenge all of us to reach for more. As you will hear from our panelists tonight, employing individuals with disabilities provides organizations with talented individuals at all levels. Not only do we have the opportunity to build a city where every employer is the employee of choice for people with disabilities, but also we have an obligation to empower all of our citizens to reach their full potential. I'd like to thank Mayor Hogsett, the Mayor's Advisory Council on Disability, and our panelists for showing us what is possible and for leading the way for a brighter future for Hoosiers with disabilities. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy your time here tonight.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We're going to move on to the next part of our forum, Disability Employment Forum. I want to introduce our panelists we have on the platform here. First up is Rebecca Calvert, Care Coordinator, Community Health Network, and applause is appropriate at this time, by the way. Tim Doyle, member of the Dobie, O'Connor, and Zaleski. Tim?
That's correct.
Larry Markle, of Empowerment and Economic Independence Director of Eskenazi Health. Destin Maynard, Gatorade PepsiCo. Jeff Mittman, Bosma Enterprises. And if you'll see in your program, Ben was supposed to be here tonight. He was not able to make it tonight, but we do have a really quick little video we'd like to show you right now.
My parents always raised me that you can't expect people to give you something just because you want it. You've got to earn it. I was probably searching for a job for 4 or 5 years, and the hardest thing is I would get calls from my resume, but when I got there, I would say 90% of the time I knew in the first 5 seconds they were not interested in me. One of the first interviews I had was one of the worst. The first question he asked me was, how fast can you type? I do not type that fast, but I can type and I don't make a lot of errors. And he said something like, well, you're not going to fit in here. And he ended the interview. So I think that was the first real life experience when someone said, well, I don't want you just because you're different. I went home and cried. And then after a couple of years, I just got numb to it. I still had that little glimmer of hope that someday I would find someone who would give me a chance.
Achievability is a professional mentoring program started at Old National Bank that pairs our executive leaders with individuals with disabilities for a year-long mentoring program.
So we brought Ben on as an employee, and I challenged Ben to make sure we created the best program for people with disabilities.
And those relationships are really transforming our organization.
Mandy Kelly is a mentee that I met a couple of summers ago.
We immediately hit it off.
She literally has a smile that will light up a room.
She said she was nervous in the beginning, but I never got that feeling.
I was literally scared at the beginning. I didn't want to say something or do something that would hurt her feelings.
Candy and I have probably become more friends than mentor-mentee.
She works for us now, which is great.
I love my coworkers. They treat me like any other person.
About a month after Mandy started, I had 3 people from the area that she works in come to me and just describe how great she was and the value that she had brought to that department.
You know, there's a very simple way to look at achievability. It's just smart, good business. You hire great people, they care about your company, they're great coworkers, and it's just in a selfish way, it's a great program for us as a company for that single reason.
This program started with one executive leader and one individual, and it's grown. We have folks with spinal cord injuries. We have folks with cerebral palsy, blind, deaf, autism. We're targeting all abilities. The idea of the program is not to be hubbed in one certain area, but to be shared throughout the Midwest and the entire region. But our ultimate goal is to spread this program with every single community, every single employer and state that's willing to adopt, being inclusive.
As you think about the pairing of a mentor and a mentee, the real motivation is learning. It's about learning to be a better person. It's about learning to be a better leader.
You have to accept some things about yourself that maybe you don't like. And that thing was really primarily that I judge people. I judge people based on what they look like and the first impressions. And growing as a human being from that experience has been amazing.
And the unknown scares people, but we aren't scary people. We're just looking for opportunities just like everybody else. When people say, oh, you know, you're not normal. Well, no one's normal.
All right, we're going to get started with our forum here, and I promised them I would not ask any spelling or math questions. Although Tim said, that's fine, bring it on. So maybe we might do that. I think everybody is mic'd, so you should not have any trouble hearing them. But let's just start off and ask anybody who wants to chime in, and I'd like for all of you to, if you could. What's the biggest misconception someone may have about hiring somebody with a disability?
Well, Kevin, I think Jeff Nittman, I believe that one of the biggest misconceptions about hiring somebody with a disability is that the accommodations that you might have to make are expensive in nature. And that's not necessarily true. For example, with myself, with my very limited vision, a lot of the accommodations I use are actually already part of an operating system of any computer I might use. So I think it's a matter of learning what is available and how you access that, but it's not an impediment to production or to work, and it's not necessarily an expensive endeavor.
Yeah. Anybody else?
You know, the guy in the video, the gentleman said it's just good business. I mean, think about it. These are great people.
Yeah.
And we are business people. I'm a partner in a CPA firm, and I've been a CPA for 35 years. And I also do all the recruiting for our company. And this December, we'll have about 65 people starting with us. And it's good business to find somebody who can make this work. And I'm telling you, the biggest thing that I've seen is cost is really not an issue, and you think it is, but it changes the environment. When you hire folks, a person with disability, it changes the culture, it changes the environment. It affects everyone. And so positively, you can't put a price tag on it. It's incredible.
Anybody else? Yep.
Yes, I would agree with what was just said. And due to the fact, for example, coming in for an interview, there was an interpreter there, and they were thinking of hiring two. They thought they were going to hire 2 people instead of just 1, and they thought it'd be double expensive, which they could actually do with 1 person. But that was the misconception, to hire a normal person during the interview. So versus to somebody that has a disability. They think it's expensive, but that's not the case, because really the whole point is you need to look at the qualifications on the resume.
Yeah, and that's a terrific point. I think that's often the misconception that many have, is that the person with a disability is not going to be able to perform the essential elements of the job. And the program that I'm part of, the internship program for college students with disabilities at Eskenazi Health, we tell people, these are college students. They meet the same qualifications as any other college student. They're ready, willing, and able to do the job. Just need the opportunity.
Sure. Well, I think my case is a little bit unique because I actually had already worked with community for over a year when I found out I had narcolepsy. So I actually was working, and there's something called microsleep or a sleep attack, which I kind of say is the most gentle kind of attack I think possible. But I stood up to go to the restroom and my body fell asleep, and so I fell over and I thought I blacked out, hit my head, had a concussion, and couldn't drive for 3 weeks. It was this whole long process, but my boss and everybody around has really been so considerate and so helpful in basically allowing me to, if I need to come in a little bit later, if I need to leave a little bit early, if I'm not able to drive or it's not safe for me to drive, as well as needing to take about a 15 to 30 minute nap every few hours if I need to, and providing a safe space to do that. So I didn't get hired on with it, but we've kind of had to figure it out as we've gone along.
Great, Rebecca. Let's expand on that you just made there. What has being employed by your company meant to you? And again, anybody. We can pick on Jeff again if we want.
Okay, let's pick on Jeff. I think being hired on to the company of Bosma Enterprises has allowed me to assist in providing opportunities to other people with disabilities, perhaps opportunities they haven't had, because as an organization, as myself as an individual with disability, I understand their capabilities, understand what they're capable of. And as we talk about awareness and employment of people with disabilities, one of the best ways to build awareness is to actually hire somebody with a disability and let them perform, because they'll amaze you at what they're able to do. And the only reason they amaze you is because people don't understand their capabilities. And once they're able to do that, people see that with their own eyes and they experience that, then I think a lot of that weariness or a lot of that reluctance to hire people with disabilities goes away, because they're able to perform at the same level as other individuals.
Anybody else?
Well, you add to that the performance of the individual, but then again, I get back to the effect on the rest of the company. It's just incredible. And so you hire folks who have is a person with a disability, they come in and perform, and the effect is just incredible. You see somebody who's having difficulty, and you had a bad day, and you say, man, if that guy can get in there in the morning and can do the work, I got to have a better approach. And it just takes off from there.
I guess I would say, speaking on behalf of many of the students that have interned with us, wonderful opportunity for students to get the work opportunity that's hopefully then going to lead to full-time employment in a field related to their major in college. Great for the students. It's also been terrific from the assessment and evaluation that we've done for the employers, for the managers and supervisors, who in many cases had not employed, not had a colleague with a disability before, so it broke down some of those stereotypes or misconceptions that they may have had.
Okay, well, as for me, when I got hired at Gatorade PepsiCo, it was a big impact on my life. Prior to working there, I had applied for over 450 jobs. And I kept getting denied because of being deaf most of the time, the communication barrier that existed from that. And at that time, over the course of 2 years in applying, I started losing faith in humanity, actually, to be honest. Wow. Because I was getting rejected many times, and so it's natural to just kind of wonder, and I did keep going. But when PepsiCo hired me, my life was transformed for the better. My quality was there, but my qualifications were always there. But PepsiCo finally gave me the opportunity, which built me up, and I do my job well. With that, I can provide more opportunities for other deaf people and other people with disabilities.
Great. Did you have anything else to add? I know we piggybacked on your comments. Okay. We talked about businesses and why they should hire, but share with people who have disabilities, might be looking for employment right now. What steps should they be taking? What should they be doing?
You know, I think the steps an individual with disability should be taking as they seek employment are not a lot different than what somebody without a disability should take. They should be aggressive. They should be doing the right thing. They should be chasing the education. I would say one of the biggest steps is to remain aggressive in your approach to things. And by aggressive, I mean proactive. Proactive, and I think, you know, what we hear sometimes is that people lose faith. They lose faith. But all it takes is the one opportunity to actually perform and actually to prove your capabilities and your approach to things. And once you do that, people realize that you can build on that success. You now have the work history. You now have those references, those employment references. And honestly, it's a matter of not giving up and being proactive.
I agree. It shouldn't be much different than anybody else, but what we're trying to do is we're doing interviews with folks, and we're saying there's certain attributes and certain behaviors we're looking for people that work for our CPA firm. And so the person preparing for an interview, they've got to take what's on their resume and show me those attributes and show me those behaviors, because we know they work at our firm. So I'm saying, can you take them from your resume and give me story after story? I would say that would be the same for a person with a disability or anyone, is really know your resume and be able to give us stories that show the behaviors that we're looking for that are successful in our organization.
I think part of what we're trying to do with college students, but also with students in the K-12 setting as well, is to let them know, don't think that because you have a disability that you can't do the thing that you want to do vocationally in your life, that you can't do a certain major in college. We want students to, you know, it's cliche, but to chase the dream and to do what they want to do, and don't feel like that you have to get segregated into certain lines of work just because you have a disability.
Well, I agree with that in regards to not giving up. There's already a disadvantage, so just have to be very persistent and proactive to really stick with the course and highlight your skills and let the world know that, hey, I'm here, I can do that job. And once you do that, you'll have the spotlight on you. And that'll be able to help spread the awareness, get the word out.
A lot of businesses want to do the right thing. They want to hire the right people, do the right thing, but they may not really know how to go out and find the right people. Those of you in the business world, how can you help business owners, people in the hiring process in their company, find the right people?
I think it's a matter of networking and casting the widest net possible. It's just like if I want to hire anybody from underrepresented population, I have to cast the wide enough net to bring those applicants in. And then as the applicants come in, I'm hiring strictly on their capabilities and what they can do and what they can translate for me. Now it's incumbent upon people with disabilities to be able to do that, to translate that, to show what they're capable of. But not holding that against them and casting them a wide net. So if I could get them in the door and give them the opportunity to actually do that, and I do that through networking with other organizations. You know, if I'm trying to hire somebody who's visually impaired, I work with the National Federation for the Blind, or I work with AFB, or I work with BOSMA, or I work with whomever to cast that. And it's a matter of networking, using our professional networks to bring those people in the door, because once we get them in the door, once we get them there, they can prove themselves, and then we can bring them into the company.
Yeah, and with what we're doing with college students, and I would suggest for employers looking to hire college graduates with disabilities, is utilize those resources on campus. In my former life, I directed the Disability Services Office at Ball State, and we would often partner with one of our proud alums is up here on the panel. We would partner with the Career Services Office on campus and make sure that we would have students with disabilities in front of employers as they were coming to campus to recruit. So I think reaching out to colleges, to the Career Services Office first, but often that Disability Services Office can spread the word to students with disabilities on campus who could be terrific recruits for you.
Well, this is a little hard to answer because I don't really look at it from a business perspective, but I was a business owner. If I were, I would look at other companies and who they are currently hiring with people with disability. Like in my case, my being deaf, I know Federal Express tends to hire deaf people. So as a business, I would look at them to get some insight into how they're doing it and why they're doing things the way they are with deaf employees. And I think that could apply to any disability as well, just to see what's out there.
Yeah, I think employers, when they know what they want in people, but we have tunnel vision. And we're saying we've got to find this type of person with this type of GPA and the rest. And as employers, we're not really looking out and looking at and being more creative and saying this person could probably fit what we're doing very, very well, but we're too single focused. Time is a pressure also when you go to campuses and you've got so much time to meet the people. But I would encourage employers to open up and say, look, I've got my requirements, but there's a lot more people that meet these requirements than I've generally looked at.
I think for me, it's a little bit harder because a lot of the sleep-wake disorders are so undiagnosed, and even though it is something that's autoimmune, there are really a lot of things that could potentially contribute, but there isn't really one thing that does contribute to being narcoleptic. So I think for me, it's a little bit more difficult because there are people who just think, oh, narcolepsy, you know, you're just really sleepy. Like, I get sleepy, kind of suck it up. And that's what I thought for years. But I think in reality, what's been helpful for me is going and doing those sleep studies and whatnot. So now when people tell me, oh my gosh, I'm just always tired, and no matter how much I sleep, they're telling me all these different things that were potentially symptoms for me, I'm kind of almost this advocate, like, hey, this is something that you probably never thought of, but maybe it would be a good idea to get a sleep study done. You just never know if you might have narcolepsy too. A lot more people have it than what is diagnosed.
We've been given a list of questions to ask. This is a good one here. Have any of you ever experienced some sort of discrimination because of your disability? Loaded question.
I could kind of speak on that.
Sure.
Again, not necessarily discrimination. I would just say, kind of how I mentioned before, oh, you're just tired. Like, why do you feel like you need to take a nap? You know, sometimes my husband's like, come on, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I read in a New York Times article that having narcolepsy, in the same way someone doesn't, they feel like it's about like 48 to 72 hours of not having sleep is kind of how you always feel. And so it's really hard to explain that when that's how you feel every day.
Sure.
And so there's just a lot of misconceptions, I think, and assumptions, and then a lot of it's unknown too. So I'm kind of fighting from the underground here.
Do you find yourself needing to defend
all the time?
yourself because of that? Yeah.
All the time, yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I would say all the time.
All the time.
But so is everybody who's out in the audience. I mean, everybody's judging everybody all the time. But look, we go back to your previous question, and we talked about looking at employees and trying to find a good employee. My friend up here interviewed 450 times.
Yeah.
450 times. You don't want somebody with that kind of will on your staff? You gotta be kidding me. You want somebody with that kind of will on your staff. And that's what you find with folks that have disabilities. They're stronger because they've gone through it, because they've been judged every minute of every day. But we're stronger because of it, and we're better employees.
We're stronger and more committed. Absolutely.
Right.
Committed to the mission.
Say that again, Jim.
Committed to the organization. If you have those individuals who've gone through that and who have gone through that discrimination and that fight to actually find a job, what you'll find is they're absolutely committed to the organization and the mission that you're trying to achieve. So it's that commitment. That's exactly the kind of person, because those experiences are what form the individual that you want to bring into an organization.
We've kind of touched on this before. I'm sorry.
Okay. Chào Trung Thoại. Let's give a good example. So, for example, how many of you can understand me? I have a voice, right? You can tell I do have a normal voice. So what happens is, when I go to an interview, I will either pick that I will talk or I will sing. And most of the time, I will end up talking because I'm looking throughout my 450 interviews that I've had. They don't like seeing two people in one room. So if they see an interpreter, they don't want to think about the idea of paying for two people. So there's a lot of moments in life where you feel like being
Discriminate.
And those kinds of moments where you feel like, okay, what do I do? Because you try to talk. I've even had a co-supervisor, not a practical, by the way. I let everybody know that, not a practical, who said, hey, I don't know if you can be talking. You sound like you got peanut butter on your mouth. Okay. This was in front of a couple of other people. You know what? You'll get funky, yeah, you'll get funky, but that I've handled on my own. But when you think about it, I'm trying, right? I'm trying to communicate with everybody. If I can communicate with you, if I'm making an effort, and you're telling me to shut up because I got peanut butter in my mouth, well, how much more cooperation can we have here? It's very difficult to put yourself out there, and at the same time say, I'm willing, I'm able, but you're shutting me down, okay? I need you to give me the opportunity.
Wow, very good. I think it was Jeff that said this a minute ago, talked about some businesses are reluctant because they're not sure the cost that might be involved in hiring somebody. What are those costs? What might a business expect to have to do? Anybody?
Well, I think some of the costs, in most cases, the costs are not as great as they expect, if they exist at all.
Yeah.
Like I said, as an example, a lot of times technology is a great equalizer. Technology is a great equalizer. If I'm communicating with somebody in New York City through my computer, they have no idea. They have no idea I have a disability. If we send them the products they've requested, they have no idea it came from somebody with a disability. All they know is that the job they requested has been performed correctly.
It's been fulfilled, yeah.
It's been fulfilled. But many times it's a minor accommodation. Some of the machinery we use at Bosma is just a matter of creating a piece of wood that sits alongside the machinery as a guide. That's it. That's the entire accommodation for that job. So a lot of times, most times, 99% of the cases, the accommodation is not what people expect it to be. And it's just a matter of communicating that. And I would say as an employee, I'm upfront with what I need. I'm upfront and communicate with my potential employer or whomever it may be about what I might need and how we can go about doing that, and how I can perform, and how it will benefit the organization if they meet that accommodation. Because there's an opportunity cost for not hiring that individual as well. So I think it's a matter of the accommodations are not that great in a lot of cases. And when there are accommodations needed, it's a matter of communicating that directly with the employee.
I think in many cases, I'm going to use a term that's very familiar to people in the room, something called universal design, creating our environments in a way that are accessible and usable by as many people from the outset. And that's so prevalent with technology. And we all use technology in the organizations where we work. And oftentimes, the technology isn't created with people with disabilities in mind. And so, something that we could all be doing is in that purchasing process, making sure that the vendors that we're using, the software, hardware that we're buying, is accessible from the outset for people with disabilities. That can help mitigate some of the cost for accommodation later.
I don't, it's not more of what I need, but what others need.
Wow.
Education, awareness, for example. I have a question for all of you. All right.
Now I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to use an example for everybody to be involved, okay? If I want to ask you, if you're hungry, what would you do with your hand? If you're going to tell me you're hungry, what would you do? All right? If you're thirsty, if you want to make a drink,
right.
I'm going to give you a free one, okay? Right. You make a phone call, what are you going to do? Phone call, right? All those are what we call classifiers. Those are a great way to communicate. It's just a matter of education, awareness. And once you get involved in building a relationship with that person or any disability, you're able to pick up tricks that will allow everything to become so much smoother. I mean, just like a waterfall. All those things that you do, you move with your hands, or how you describe something, it makes a big difference. It's more of awareness than what I actually need, okay?
I've never found the cost of accommodations that high. I think about my situation, and there are buttons for the doors to get in and buttons to get into the bathroom, but I think my employer gave me a button for the elevator so I work more, right? So I think that worked out for him. He did buy a button so I can take it up to the third floor, but that meant I could come in on the weekends and work some more, so he was happy about that. But I've never found them to be, at least for me, my family, and others that I've worked with, to be that high. It's really just a generous spirit, and you want other employees around that are that way anyway. Yeah. It really is folks coming up and just wanting to help because they're good people.
Yeah. Someone out in the audience right now, someone watching on television, listening to this, says, okay, I want to be a part of this. I want to do the right thing. How do they start an inclusion program? How would you suggest that?
I'd start by calling Old National Bank, right? Because we just saw a video on those guys,
yep.
And they've proved, and they have set up a program, and they've had it for years, and it works. And so I would start there, and maybe even go to college campuses, to the disability services that are offered there, and just be creative. But I think people who have done it before, companies that have done it before, I would start there.
So you're not inventing the wheel here.
That's right.
Copy from somebody if you need to. Anybody else?
Well, being proactive. For example, when everybody first came into the room, my wife and I, my mother, we were all signing. And so one needs to be willing to come up and communicate with me. And they might have been concerned because I was signing, they're not familiar with that. That's a language that I'm used to. But it's just a matter of getting started. Just come up, approach, wave hands, and you'll be surprised at how much information that can be discovered just by starting.
Did you feel you needed to share your disability with your coworkers? initially on?
Absolutely. Yes, especially after I got diagnosed and I realized this is why when the room is warm, I tend to just kind of start to drift off, or, you know, feeling like in a safe place or feeling super comfortable, you really kind of just start to fall asleep. But with my coworkers, they, almost for safety, like I've kind of had to tell them, hey, sometimes I'll get up after maybe not even realizing I've kind of nodded off a few times, and if I get up too fast and my body's still like, hey, we're gonna go back to sleep, you know, that's really dangerous. So even though I do take a stimulant twice a day and do take those naps that I need to, it still is really dangerous. And so sometimes I'll stay after work and take a 30-minute nap before I drive home, because driving is also another thing that, you know, really kind of gets me tired, and I really don't drive for probably more than like 30 minutes.
We need to wrap up here in this part, but does anybody, I want to give you all a moment to just share some final thoughts if you'd like. No pressure, but if you'd like to. Yes.
So, boy, something that was just said is such an important thing is I would guess employers in this room, you all employ people with disabilities. You may or may not know that.
That's right.
This whole notion of disclosure is can be such a tricky concept, and it's a very personal decision. The environment may not be right for the person to disclose. So maybe to answer your question from a moment ago, is to create an environment where people with disabilities are comfortable in coming forward to disclose the disability.
Good. Anybody else with a final thought?
Well, related to what you just said, in regards to my experience of applying 450 times, I went ahead and put down on my resume, my application, that I was deaf. I wanted them to know up front. And it didn't work out very well for me. But once I removed the word deaf, all kinds of phone calls started coming in and emails. And people were interested in me because they were looking at my qualifications and not my quote-unquote disability. So full disclosure may or may not be the best idea. It's just how one views it.
Any other final thoughts? We want to thank this panel for giving their time today and sharing their stories. Outstanding. And I'll go ahead and speak for them. As the evening progresses, if you have a question that you didn't get asked and you'd like to hear their answer, you would be available to be cornered later on this evening, right? Great. Thank you, folks. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, first of all, I would like to thank all of you guys for coming today. Such wonderful people in the room to hear such a wonderful message. First off, I want to take a minute to let everyone know the Office of Disability Affairs, which is where I work for the City of Indianapolis. I'm a project manager. We strive to build strong civic, social, and economic opportunities for individuals with disabilities within our community. We do this by looking for opportunities to build strong partnerships evident by the people you see in this room today. Committed to the goal of removing barriers that stand in the way of people with disabilities that might otherwise keep them from participating within the community. Whether that be taking part in a family meal at a local restaurant, taking their families to an outing at the Children's Museum, or even gaining and keeping a meaningful job. On behalf of myself, the Mayor's Advisory Council on Disability, and the Indianapolis Office of Disability Affairs, I would like to thank all of our sponsors, IUPUI, SECOA, Tangram, our partner, Ability Indiana, NARF, and Yellow Cab, and a few others that I may have forgotten. But I want to take this time now to introduce someone who has been a great asset to have on our side. He's an individual who brings more than 25 years of leadership experience in not-for-profit management to his role at SECOA. His expertise includes strategic planning, budget development, and program administration. In addition, he has a successful track record in marketing, financial development, and volunteer administration. Before joining SECOA, he served the American Red Cross in a variety of capacities, including the Director of Chapter Operations Support for the Great Lakes Services Area, CEO of the Fort Worth, Texas Chapter, Executive Director of the Topeka, Kansas Chapter, and Assistant General Manager of the Louisville, Kentucky Chapter. He has earned both his MBA and Bachelor of Arts in History and Humanities from the University of Louisville. Please help me welcome CEO and President of Central Indiana's Council on Aging, Orion Bell.
So good afternoon. Very pleased to be able to be here today and speak on behalf of SECOA Aging and In-Home Solutions. We are the area agency on aging that serves Central Indiana. And many people think of our organization as an organization that focuses on the needs of older adults. But it might surprise you to know that 40% of our clients are under the age of 60. And at any given time, about 500 of those folks are children under the age of 18. What all our folks have in common is a desire to be independent, to be empowered, to be a part of the community. And he doesn't want to listen to me either. So it's a great honor to be here to see so many of our friends and supporters and community partners that are part of this wonderful event. I was asked to do this, and part of the instruction I was given, I was going to introduce the keynote speaker. I don't have a bio for the keynote speaker, but I do have Wikipedia. There's a lot in here. But you know, I've seen enough episodes of the Stephen Colbert Report to know that not everything that's in Wikipedia is real. But this looks good. So that Joe Hogsett is the 49th and current mayor of the city of Indianapolis. That's what it says right here. And a great friend of our community and the people who live here, and like all of us here, committed to a high quality of life for all the residents of Indianapolis. And it's an honor to be here, and as fumbling as it was, an honor to introduce you, sir.
That's about the best introduction I've ever had, actually, Orion. Well, good evening. I am indeed honored to be here again this year for these important awards as we take time to recognize, affirm, celebrate access and inclusion in the workplace. The city of Indianapolis promotes economic independence, equitable employment, and inclusivity for all of its citizens. And that includes all of our neighbors with disabilities. Under the direction of the Mayor's Advisory Council on Disability and our Office of Disability Affairs, Indianapolis partners with companies, with educational institutions, with policymakers, all in the effort to provide greater economic opportunity for everyone, all people. October, I don't need to tell this august group at the Access and Inclusion Awards ceremony, but October is Disability Employment Awareness Month. And in so doing, it is important to celebrate our city's long history at the forefront of promoting inclusion for all residents, all visitors with disabilities. This tradition
began not long after the founding of Indianapolis. The 1840s saw the opening of both the School for the Deaf and the School for the Blind, both of which still serve our city. In the 1930s, the James E. Roberts School became one of the only public schools in the nation constructed and dedicated to educate K through 12 students who were recovering from polio and other physical disabilities. Continuing in that tradition, the 1970s saw then Mayor Bill Hudnut create the Mayor's Advisory Council on Disability. Mayor Stephen Goldsmith furthered that initiative by enhancing our city's programmatic and physical accessibility. Mayor Bart Peterson took our city's dedication into the 21st century when he created the Office of Disability Affairs in 2000. And during Mayor Greg Ballard's administration, our city's commitment convinced the National Organization on Disability to recognize Indianapolis with the Accessible America Award in 2009. Recently, the city's Office of Disability Affairs partnered with the Joseph Maley Foundation and their Disability Awareness Program. This program provides education on disability for grade school students, and it encourages students to recognize the abilities of all individuals, to value the strengths that each of us brings to creating the most inclusive city that we can possibly create. In addition to partnering with the Joseph Maley Foundation, the Office of Disability Affairs has made several presentations at schools throughout the community illustrating the work service dogs do for individuals who have disabilities. In fact, Dustin Gilmer, one of our steadfast project managers and who you just heard from, considers his service dog, Carver, to be an integral part of the city's team. Carver allows Dustin to bring his full talents to bear on his position as a project manager, so we see Carver as an important member of our team. One of the better behaved members of our team, in fact. Truly. Furthermore, as the city's infrastructure gears up for massive updates in the coming years, we remain focused on providing every individual easy and affordable access to transportation. Obtaining and keeping a good job should be possible for all in Indianapolis. And so we invest in accessible infrastructure like sidewalks, curb-cut ramps, and audio-enhanced crosswalks. Additionally, we can find the Indianapolis community working alongside the city to empower more individuals living with a disability. At Eskenazi Health, the Initiative for Empowerment and Economic Independence places college students with physical disabilities in internships. In turn, these internships allow applicants to find employment relevant to their area of study. This history, this tradition of access and inclusivity is something that we as a city should promote, affirm, and recognize We should be proud of our history. And so, let us celebrate where our history has brought us to today by recognizing some of the contemporaneous leading lights in our community when it comes to access and inclusion. On with the presentation of our 2018 awards for those who stand tall for access and inclusion. I thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The Employer Award, can Bruce Schneith come forward, please?
Good evening. My name is Bruce Schneith. I am the Vice President of Workforce Development Services at Easter Seals Crossroads here in Indianapolis. And it is my honor and distinct pleasure to be here to present the 2018 Employer Award to a very worthy organization and a tremendous community partner with Easter Seals Crossroads. A little background to set the stage. Easter Seals Crossroads has been serving individuals with disabilities in central Indiana for over 80 years. We provide opportunities for people of all ages with a range of disabilities to really reach their full potential. We've been at the forefront of partnering with key stakeholders in the community to improve employment outcomes for people with disabilities. And through our employment programs, we prepare people to work to improve their quality of life by offering employment services for job seekers with disabilities, and also transition services for high school students with disabilities through a program called Project Search. And today we want to recognize our esteemed partner in partnership providing services to Project Search, and that is the Community Health Network. Project Search takes place at two locations within the Community Health Network, Community Hospital East and Community Hospital North, where high school students with disabilities, they're totally immersed in the workforce, in the workplace, facilitating the learning process through work-based training, application of skills, job coaching, and workplace accommodations. Students build communication and problem-solving skills, as well as job-specific skills utilizing worksite internships within the Community Health Network. Through our collaboration with the network, young adults with disabilities learn skills necessary for employment, and at the same time, the Community Health Network gains greater access to an untapped labor pool with limitless potential. Now, it's because of the Community Health Network's history of collaboration and their reputation for promoting strong community partnerships, Easter Seals Crossroads really wanted to partner with the Health Network as our business partner and host business site for Project Search when this program was being developed 12 years ago. And I'm pleased to say that community stepped up to the plate and certainly answered our call to action and has been a key partner in this program for 12 years. And since its inception, the Health Network has hired over 35 graduates of the program throughout multiple locations across central Indiana, an amazing number. Community Health Network truly walks the talk of embracing people of all abilities. And it's for these reasons and many more that we nominated the Health Network for the 2018 Employer Award. This award recognizes businesses that go above and beyond to create employment and training opportunities for people with disabilities. And I can say that the Community Health Network truly exemplifies the real meaning of this award. Their commitment to building a better working world is evident through their actions and influence on the critical dimension of inclusion. As a result, they're building a strong pipeline of talented individuals with disabilities by maximizing the untapped potential that people with disabilities bring to the workplace. Please join me in congratulating the 2018 Employer Award, Community Health Network. Accepting the award on behalf of the Community Health Network is Brian Mills, President and CEO, along with key members of his leadership staff.
Can I talk for a second? Well, Bruce, and on behalf of Community Health Network, we truly value our partnership with Crossroads, Eastern Seals Crossroads. And the number of things that we can do together are because of this great partnership. Having with me tonight 3 of our Indianapolis area region presidents, Kathy Cruzy at North, Dave Kiley at South, and Scott T. Teller at East, and they help run these programs. And as the panel said, I think it's very, very important that everybody understands that this is good business. This is great business. We develop a workforce of 100% trusted, valuable, reliable employees because we give them a chance. So does that make it good business? That in and of itself, probably not. But what ends up happening with our Project Search kids that come through, we know that they make everybody they touch better because they're properly identified as special. And they are special. And that's why we hire them. And that's why when I see them in the hall, I get to wave or hug at Tommy or Allie or the dozens of others that have come through. And we get to go back and celebrate their 5-year anniversary or their 10-year anniversary. And we now have people, not entirely through Project Search, but related programs that are at 20 years. We're a better place because of who they are. Our mission is to enhance the health and well-being of the communities we serve. That's what it's all about, and we've got to be embraced in the community, and we've got to make sure that community knows that we're inclusive of every single person, irregardless, because, as it was said before by the video, no one's normal. Thank you.
Next up, the Accessibility Award. Steve Cook, please. Steve.
Thank you. I'm Steve Cook, president of NRF. We're a statewide provider association of providers who serve people with disabilities. We're very pleased that Visit Indy is being recognized. Visit Indy is an organization that promotes the city of Indianapolis and facilitates cooperation between business and government in order to take Indianapolis to the next level. In the last decade, Visit Indy has been an active partner in activities such as opening the new airport terminal, expansion of the convention center, hosting the Super Bowl, supporting the 500 every year, and promoting business and tourism opportunities in Indianapolis and many other efforts. Over the last year, Visit Indy has worked diligently to eliminate barriers to ensure that people with disabilities can access and participate in events, programs, and activities in Indianapolis. Through their launch of the Accessible Indy webpage, Visit Indy is helping ensure that visitors of all abilities feel welcome in our city. This project was spearheaded by Mary Huggard, the Tourism Development Advisor at Visit Indy, and it has created a collaboration and partnership with numerous stakeholders, some with disabilities and many without. The web page presents a multitude of attractions, museums, historical sites, sports, recreational activities, and the accessibility at each of those locations. It also highlights transportation around the city. When we first talked about this project, Leonard Hoops, who heads up Visit Indy, probably remembers there are not very many cities who have completed an accessibility guide for visitors. One of my highlights is that the Visit Indy website and the accessibility highlights 6 locals, people with disabilities, who talk firsthand about what it's like to live in Indianapolis and the accessibility that our city offers. It has access and links to transportation, to translators, to interpreters, travel planning teams for Hoosiers and other visitors to our cities with disability. Through this effort, Visit Indy embodies Hoosier hospitality and ensures our city is accessible and welcoming to all. From our initial meeting, Leonard Hoops and a very significant connection, his son Cannon, Chris Call and Mary Huggard made it clear that Visit Indy was committed to this project not because it was particularly glitzy or would gather them a lot of attention, but because they had a very clear understanding if individuals don't have access, they're not included in their community. So it's our pleasure to recognize Visit Indy and their staff for completing this project and increasing accessibility for our city, Indianapolis. Leonard.
Congratulations, Leonard. My boy's coming up to be with us. The inspiration. Stay right here for a second. Yeah, just a second. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve. This is a great honor for us. My boy, Cannon, is up here. It obviously is near and dear to my heart. Personally, my wife, Doreen, is back there. By the way, if you live in District 5 for Indianapolis, school board, vote Doreen Hoops. I don't want to forget that.
Shameless.
Yeah.
Shameless.
I'm learning to become a politician, Mayor, by marriage. So Steve mentioned that, Cannon was an inspiration. Cannon is 13 now, and he has cerebral palsy, and he was born with a birth injury. And it opened my eyes to so many things 13 years ago. I literally did not see the world that I see it now, and I'm so much personally the better for it. I wish I could snap my fingers and let him do whatever he wanted to do, but I wouldn't want to not know everything I've learned over the last 13 years. It's been incredible and incredibly enriching for me. I want to thank, Steve mentioned Mary Huggard. Is Mary here tonight? We invited her, but Mary's basically retired, so she doesn't really need to show up for anything anymore. But we did invite her. Mary was our VP of Tourism Development for many years, and we gave her this project, and we said, she retired a year and a half ago, and I said, Mary, I got a great project for you, and she dug into it. And then Chris Goller, SVP of Marketing, Jeff Robinson, our Director of Marketing, Lara Neal, I see Lara over there, actually put the website together after all the content. Stand up and wave, Lara. So if you've been to the page, if you Google Visit Indy Accessibility, it'll take you right to the page, but you'll see what Steve was talking about. It's a really deep, robust website. It's more than just, here's places where there's a ramp or something like that. We really tried to think holistically about both physical and developmental disabilities and how anywhere you want to go. We talked about, remember a couple years ago, you saw the phrase all around town, Indy welcomes all. And we do. And right before we had that lunch with Steve, we'd been having an internal meeting about something, and it came up that do we really welcome all? Because we're not doing that great of a job for those with particularly physical disabilities, knowing where they can enjoy this city. And this is a great city, and we have a few people in town, by the way, this week, if you've noticed. So if you went to Joann's Fabrics or Michael's and you couldn't find any corduroy, you understand what the reason is. It's tough to find this time of the year. But this is what we do for a living. It's a great joy, and honestly, this starts at the top with Mayor Hogsett and his administration. Steve's son Thomas, Mayor Hogsett's chief of staff, has been very supportive throughout this process. They've been great partners on everything Visit Indy does. We're going to build a gigantic hotel complex over on Pan Am Plaza pretty soon. You probably read about that, all sorts of great stuff. But I did want to go, before I leave, pointing out all the organizations that supported us. The Arc of Indiana, ASK, which is about special kids, the Bally Foundation, Bosma Enterprises, Damar, INARF, of course, with Steve, the city, Indiana School for the Deaf, Self-Advocates of Indiana, and Tangram, who my wife happens to be on the board of. We're all great partners throughout this process. So thank you. Thank everybody who's in this room. Obviously, you're part of the solution, and we appreciate what you all do for our community every day. Thank you.
And now the Exceptional City Service Award.
Hello, my name is Joeen Pope, and I'm with Indy Parks and Recreation, and this is a huge honor, and I'm so excited to be here and to be invited and to tell you about the person that we've nominated. The recipient of this award has been instrumental in securing new programs in partnerships that promote inclusion and acceptance. One project that she has orchestrated was our inclusion room at Rhodius Park. I'm sorry, not an inclusion room, a sensory room. I'm not a greatest public speaker, so I apologize, but the sensory room at Rhodius Park. A sensory room is a specially designed room that contains a range of stimuli that help individuals develop and engage their senses. These can include lights, colors, soft play, and other materials that are in a safe environment, and they can explore and interact without risk. The sensory room has been a huge success with our partners at William Penn Elementary School. William Penn is physically connected to the facility, Rhodius Park Family Center, and they share a lot of the same facilities. And so during the school day, the students from William Penn use our sensory room, and then in the evening we have access to it on weekends, summers, and evenings. And then the William Penn School, they have commented that their disruptions and that sort of thing has decreased since the sensory room has been implemented. The really cool thing about the room in that our person did, it did not cost the taxpayers any money. So she had written 2 grants, and the grants paid for contractors to renovate an existing room in the facility, and then also purchase materials. And this room is the only facility of this type on the west side of Indianapolis, and it may be the only one in Indianapolis. This room has become a staple at the day camp at Rhodius Park. This individual also coordinates with approximately 45 campers each week during the summer for about 6 weeks in the summer. The camp is geared for campers ages 6 to 18 and provide a traditional day camp experience for children with disabilities. Our ratio is about a 1-to-3 ratio of staff to campers, and she is responsible for training the staff, hiring the staff, training the staff, and the day-to-day programming. In addition, she coordinates monthly dances, karaoke nights, adult exercise classes, seasonal parties. This individual is also responsible for assisting citizens who might need a special accommodation or assistance in participating in one of our programs. This year's Exceptional City Service Award goes to Indy Parks and Recreation employee Tanya Jenkins.
I don't have a speech, so just thank you.
Now the James Pollard Lifetime Service Award as Nancy Moore. Nancy, thank you.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce our next award winner. I met Jane at a support group years ago for parents who had infants with disabilities when our sons were both very young. My son was about 2, her son was an infant, and it took me a couple years to come up for air, but she and her husband spoke at a workshop that we both attended, and their son was born, Brandon, who's here tonight, was born missing most of all 4 limbs. And so, but Jane and her husband Mike gave a little talk that night. And not only was she an inspiration, but she was wise and practical. And she said, I'll never forget, at that workshop, she said, we're not going to think about what Brandon can't do. We're going to concentrate on what he can do. And I never forgot that. It's been 30 years. So he's accomplished a lot. He's here tonight with his baby, so you can meet him. But Jane went on to share her experience and hope by joining the staff of About Special Kids. And she became a leader of, and is now basically the executive director. She championed many initiatives there over the years. She led a program, or still leads a program, with pediatric residents at IU School of Medicine. This program offers opportunities for residents to understand, to collaborate with community-based organizations, and really understand and learn what it's like to raise a child with a disability. She started the online Ask Resource Directory. You can go there right now and find resources that serve not only our city but our state. She's a member of the Children's Mental Health Advisory Board. She and her daughter are currently puppy raising a CCI dog, Abel, who's here tonight. And Brandon has had several service dogs, so she is paying back. She's been involved in a national organization called Parent to Parent USA. She began a medical case conference program at Ask that, with a provider network that brings community partnerships to the medical practice. Jane's professional career is centered on helping families who have kids with disabilities lead more productive and inclusive lives. She really had enough to do with her own family and her own son with a disability, but she chose to spend her life helping others. That demonstrates to me the spirit of what this award is about, and I'm thrilled to introduce Jane Scott. Thank you. The recipient of the James K. Pauley Lifetime Service Award.
Congratulations.
Got a lot of things going here. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Nancy. This was such a surprise. Wow. I've been doing this for a long time. Brandon's back here 30 years ago. Didn't know what life was going to be like. I joined what I call the culture of families that are raising kids with special needs. And as I always say, people say, how did you do it? I said, it takes a village. It really does take a village. And I believe that About Special Kids is the village that helped me raise my son, has helped hundreds and hundreds of families raise their kids. And we get hundreds of calls each month from families that are all the way from a child just being born and not knowing what to do to a child that just has a new diagnosis and to have all kinds of questions. And I know I came out of a social work degree. I was, I kind of knew enough to be dangerous, and then I had this baby born without any limbs. And it's amazing how many places I had to call to finally find a place that knew everything, that knew all the different services, all the different programs, how to connect them, and not just send you on to someplace else. So I want to thank my coworkers here today. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't be up here. They surround me. We all surround each other each day to make sure lives are just that much better for kids with special needs, and About Special Kids is a big piece of that. Thank you.
We want to thank our keynote speaker, Mayor. It's been a busy week for you, I'm sure, so thank you for taking your time today. All of our award winners, another round of applause for them. And for our forum panelists, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your personal stories with us. This evening program is over, but the fellowship can continue for the next few minutes if you'd like to visit. And as I mentioned before, any of the panelists, if you have a question you'd like to ask them, they've agreed to stick around for a few minutes as well. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this tonight. I really did appreciate it. Thank you.